Deepti Kalahan joins me on the set for today's press review. Hi, Deepti.
Hi, Jeannie.
You're starting today with a really sad story about the shocking murder of a Congolese migrant in Brazil, where arrests have now been made.
That's right. His name was Moïse Mugeni Kabagambe, and he was a 24-year-old Congolese migrant in Brazil. His life as a refugee began in Rio de Janeiro several years ago, but it all came to a brutal halt on January the 24th when he was beaten to death by his manager and a group of others after demanding 2 days' worth of back pay from the beachside kiosk where he worked. His horrific, torturous murder was captured on security footage, and it's really shocked Brazil, Jeannie. It's forced Brazil into this reckoning with endemic racism in the country and also its treatment of black minorities.
And there's a lot of anger in the Brazilian papers too today.
Well, a lot of anger and a lot of questions, a lot of soul searching. This writer for Folha de Sao Paulo asks, why did authorities hide his murder from the public eye for a week? Why hasn't there been a response officially from the Brazilian president? How many beatings make a brutal country, this writer wonders. There is the literal beating of Moïse, I quote, black, immigrant, and African. There's also the more symbolic beating, that's of the myth that Brazil is a welcome country to migrants. Rio's mayor actually met with Moise's family 2 days ago and posted a picture with them on Twitter, calling his murder unacceptable and revolting. There's also been a lot of backlash on Twitter with a poster designed by Brazilian graphic artist Denelli reading "Justice for Moïse." It was shared thousands and thousands of times with calls really mounting for action against this kind of race-related violence.
All right, moving on now to the Winter Olympics, which begin Friday in Beijing.
Yeah, and the mood is glum, unfortunately, ahead of these games for several reasons. The pandemic, of course, the restrictions that are in place to prevent it from becoming a super spreader event have really been described as draconian by some. Le Parisien on its front page also notes that a shadow has been cast over these, quote, strange Beijing Games due to athletes being asked not to talk about thorny geopolitical issues. The Games really opening in a glacial atmosphere, the French paper says on its front page. Quite a different story from the Global Times, which is a newspaper from the Chinese government. They're really eager to present another version of the Games, one that's of peace, harmony, and unity, as you see in this article here. The paper also really boasting of China's status as the only country to host summer and winter games, even if the winter games are run on 100% man-made snow, a water-intensive process that in itself is considered an environmental nightmare.
And you found an interesting article that takes a look at just how and why Beijing actually won the rights to host the Winter Games.
Well, it is quite curious why Beijing, which gets on average 6 days of snow a year, could actually, host a Winter Games, and why. For this ESPN writer, it really comes down to politics and money. 6 months before that vote to decide who would host the 2022 Winter Games, the Norwegian capital of Oslo, which is widely seen as a favorite, actually backed out. Norwegian authorities were unhappy about allegedly outrageous demands made by the International Olympic Committee, including a government-funded cocktail party with the Norwegian royal family. They wanted authorities to cancel local schools during the period of the Games. They wanted them to also encourage residents to go away on vacation during that time. So with Oslo out of the race, it was between Beijing and the Kazakh city of Almaty, where actual snow does fall. But Beijing won out with its lofty promises that wooed the IOC.
Just to wrap up now, Deepti, Britain's Royal Mail's investigating after its postal workers got high at work.
Allegedly got high accidentally. That's what the Times reports. What happened was there was an unclaimed parcel full of weed cookies that had postmen falling down on the job, as the Times says. A box of cookies from a place called Pablo Chocobar was left unclaimed at a sorting center in South London. Workers there then helped themselves to the cookies one early morning recently, and apparently after accidentally ingesting these cookies, they got so high that they couldn't actually function. Even worse, there's a video on Twitter of a postman in a confused and dazed state being sort of rescued by his colleagues. Not surprisingly, their bosses are not seeing the funny side of it. An investigation has been opened.
And I guess the moral of that story is don't eat something if you don't know where it came
Exactly.
from. Deepti, thank you very much for that. Deepti Kalahan with that look at today's press review.